चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतः पदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथां वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। We'd like to welcome all of you all to this Prerna festival. I'm going to speak on this topic, making life an adventure. I'm sure as youngsters, all of you all would have some day or other participated in some trekking, some sporting activity, some adventure games, water sports, something that adds some adventure to your life. But the question always is how to make life itself an adventure. Having small experiences of adventurous episodes is good, but what if life completely can become an adventure? So I'm here to share with you all 9 thoughts or 9 points how life can be made into an adventure. And the way I'm going to share these 9 points is by telling a story. And this is a very adventurous story. This is one of the most adventurous stories I've ever heard mentioned in our scriptures. So as I'm going to narrate the story, through the story, there are going to be these 9 points that come across. And if you implement these 9 points in your lives, at whatever level you can, you'll find that your entire life by itself becomes an adventure. And therefore, we'll begin by hearing a very interesting story, which many of you all would have also heard it. But it's very interesting in this context because these 9 points that I'm going to speak about, even if you can follow one of these points in your lives, you'll find that your life is very different from what it was. One time there was a man who would go to a village and he would hear katha every day. So this fellow would go, his daily duty was that evening he would go and sit in one katha and he would hear. But unfortunately, as soon as he would sit in the katha, he would go to sleep. I'm not sure how many of you are planning like that, you know. Bahar barish hai, andar AC hai, you know. So some of you may plan, you know. So even if you plan, it's okay. You hear the story and then go to sleep. You know. So this fellow, he would go invariably every day and go to sleep. So the kathakar, the fellow who was giving the katha every day, he knew, he was quite fed up of this fellow, you know. So he was so bugged by this fellow. Every day, exact same place he would come and sit and immediately go to sleep. So this kathakar, as soon as this fellow, he would see the fellow entering, he would say, "Aa gaya kya?" And then he would sit down. He would say, "Baith gaya kya?" And then he would go to sleep, That he would not say. After the whole class got over, when he would get up and go, he would say, "Ja raha hai kya?" So this guy, he never heard anything in the katha except these three words, "Aa gaya kya? Baith gaya kya? Ja raha hai kya?" Bas. That's what he heard about the katha, essentially. So this guy, he was at his home sleeping, and that day, one thief came into his house. And this fellow somehow, the only thing that he heard in the katha, he kept repeating in his sleep also. So just when this thief entered the house, he would say, "Aa gaya kya?" So that thief really got bewildered. This fellow is sleeping or is hearing. What is he doing, And then the thief hid, somewhere. So this fellow said, "Baith gaya kya?" So the thief was convinced that this fellow is seeing me, though he is sleeping. And to save his life, he jumped out of the window and he was going. He said, "Ja raha hai kya?" The thief never returned back. So the essence of the story is that when you come to Krishna Katha, when you come to Hari Katha, you hear something will be useful in your life. Now I'm going to tell you 9 points. At the end of 9 points, you might say, "Arey, first point kya tha?" Don't worry. Even if 1 point remains in your mind, no problem. Kuch to kaam aayega, sote waqt. There was a man who met a small child in one village. And he asked the small child, "In your village, has there ever been any great man or woman been born?" The child started laughing. The child said, "In our village, only children are born." Which essentially means that every great man or woman is born a child only. How a person utilizes his life or her life to make the best of the journey determines whether a person becomes a great man or woman in the end of his life. And therefore, the Ramayana talks about 3 cities. The city of Ayodhya, which is up in the north, the city of Lanka, which is way in the south, and in between the 2 cities, it talks about a 3rd city, which is the city of Kishkinda. The people in Ayodhya, they follow something which is known as Sanskriti. Very highly cultured people. The people of Lanka followed what is known as Vikriti. Very, very distorted, demoniac type of people. And people in Kishkinda in between, the city is physically in between, and also it is in between in mindsets. That means the people in the city of Kishkinda, they practice what is known as Prakriti. Prakriti means they sometimes act like Ayodhya Vasis and sometimes act like Lanka Vasis. In Kishkinda, you find Vali also, and you find Sugriv also, and you find Hanumanji also. People like Hanumanji followed Ayodhya culture, which is known as Sanskriti. People like Vali followed Lanka culture, which is known as Vikriti. And people like Sugriv were confused. Sometimes they followed Hanuman and sometimes they followed Vali. And therefore, people in Kishkinda are given a name in the Ramayana. They are known as Vanara. What is the meaning of Vanara? Vanara is a question. Nara means human, and Vanara means, are you human? So the word Vanara, it's a question. Are you human? If you're following the culture of Ayodhya, then you're a human. But if you're not following the culture of Ayodhya, and you're following the culture of Lanka, then you're a monkey. And therefore, every person in Kishkinda is asked this question. Vanara, are you human? Some people like Hanumanji, they can say yes. And some people like Vali, they say no. And some people like Sugriv, they are confused. All of us are exactly in the same situation of life. The question is, Vanara, are we human? So, we are apparently living a human life, but what it means to be a real human, that is what we are going to discuss in this whole session. And at the end of these sessions, you will realize if we follow these 9 tenets that we are discussing, to that extent, we are getting an opportunity to practice being humans, living a life of Sanskriti, what Ayodhya is prescribing, teaching us. As I said, this is going to be a story which is there in one of the Puranas. And this story is a very adventurous story. And through the medium of the story, we will hear some really interesting points. The story starts with a fight between 2 ladies. It's very interesting, you know. And it starts with a very innocent fight, but the fight goes to a big proportion, you know. So these 2 ladies, they were the wives of a sage named Kashyap Muni. And their names were Kadru and Vanita. So both of them somehow entered into a bet. And the context of the bet was a horse of Indra whose name was Uchchaishrava. So Kadru, she said that the horse was white, but its tail was black. Vanita said, not possible. How can a white horse have a black tail? She said, white horse, white tail. So they both had a bet. And the bet was that whoever won, the other person will become the servant of that person for life. They said, no problem. So the bet happened. And Kadru was insisting that it was a white horse with a black tail. And Vanita was saying it was a white horse with a white tail. So now the only thing was to really prove whether it has a black tail or a white tail. So then finally they decided to verify it. And when they verified it, Kadru won. It was a white horse with a black tail. And Vanita, she could not believe her eyes. How can a white horse have a black tail? Now for you and me, it doesn't make any difference, you know, whether it is a white tail or a black tail. But for Vanita, it made a big difference. She became the servant of Kadru for her whole life, you know, literally. And interestingly, Kadru, she had cheated. What she did was, Kadru was the mother of all the snakes, you know. So she told her children, the snakes, to go and camouflage the tail of, you know, the horse Uchchaishrava to look like a black tail. So actually it was a white tail only, but that, you know, the snakes were hanging in such a way that it looked like a black tail. So this was a turning point in Vanita's life, and she became a servant of Kadru for her whole life. At a certain point in Vanita's life, something happened which was actually going to create a change in her position as being a servant. She had another son who was born to her, whose name was Garuda. Garuda, who eventually became the eagle carrier of Vishnu. But at this point of time, he was just a son of Vanita. And when Garuda saw that his mother is a slave for her whole life practically, he was feeling very bad. And Garuda went to the snakes, the Nagas, and he struck a deal with the Nagas. He told the Nagas that if I bring you celestial nectar, the nectar that Indra has in the heavens, will you release my mother from slavery? The snake said, no problem. We'll release her from slavery the moment you get us celestial nectar. Because they knew that getting celestial nectar from Indra is not just difficult, it is impossible. So they agreed to it. And Garuda, he decided, now he's going to release his mother from slavery by getting the nectar from the heavens. Till this point of time in Vanita's life, she was living a life of fear. Most people in life, they cannot and don't want to take a new step because of fear of failure. Fear that, what if I fail. Bombay is a place where there are multiple languages that are being spoken. Naturally, if you don't belong to a particular state and there are people all around you speaking a particular language and you don't know the language, you always fear to speak in that language. If you speak broken language, then people make fun of you. So there is a lot of hesitancy to do something that is new in human beings. Fear is not because you fear to avoid things, but because you avoid things, it becomes a fear. So the first thing that we learn, or the first step that we learn to make life an adventure, is deal with your fears before beginning your journey. Fear stops you from taking the first step in your journey. Most people don't do big things in life because they think, if I take the first step, if I fail, what will happen? They never end up taking the first step at all. And therefore, there are two kinds of fears. One is fear of facing something, that is called a negative fear. And then there is a fear of excellence, which is called a positive fear. Fear of facing something means you don't have the guts to even take the first step. And fear of excellence means after you have reached a certain level, to go higher, there's another fear that comes in. In life, to begin is to succeed. In any aspect of life. Do you think after playing so many matches, Sachin Tendulkar, when he lifts a bat and he goes to play the next game, is he not nervous? After Amitabh Bachchan has acted in so many movies, when his next movie gets released, do you think he's not nervous what's going to happen? Essentially, just because they have success so many times, it's not that they are less nervous. Initially, your nervousness is, can I face it? And eventually, your nervousness becomes, can I live up to the expectations? Therefore, courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to go ahead in spite of fear. And therefore, most people in this world, they are always fearful that the world will reject me. The question you have to ask yourself is, if the world rejects me, it's fine. Am I going to reject myself? That's not fine. And therefore, if there is an enemy who is outside and he's coming to stab you with a knife, somebody can hold that fellow and prevent him from stabbing you. But if you yourself take a knife and you are stabbing yourself, who can help you? Fear is like that. Fear means you are stabbing yourself with a knife. You can't do anything and nobody outside can help you. And therefore, the most important thing to begin any adventure is to help overcome fear by accepting realities. When we accept the realities of life, we have what is known as positive emotional balance in life. And when we are not able to accept the realities of life, we face what is known as negative emotional balance in life. Everything in life, whatever emotion, whatever you're going through, if you learn to accept it with grace, with positivity, it actually becomes a helping aid in your life. Like for example, what is fear? When there is some uncertainty and I'm not sure what's going to happen. That uncertainty, I'm not able to accept it. It leads to what is known as fear. But if I accept some uncertainty, it's not called fear anymore, it's called adventure. Like I know people who do bungee jumping from 20 floors high, jump into the air. Now, how much uncertainty is there? The rope can break, something can come in between, anything can happen, right? If you jump from such a height, anything can happen. But still, why people jump? Because they have accepted that uncertainty. The moment you accept uncertainty, it is not called fear anymore, it is called adventure. Right? The moment you are not able to accept that uncertainty, it is called fear. When somebody has something that I don't have, and if I'm not able to accept it, what it is called? It is called as jealousy. I become jealous of that person. But if I accept it, it's called inspiration. That person becomes a source of inspiration for me. Like say a film star. He has so much more wealth than what you have. Now, either you can become jealous of that film star by not accepting it, or you can take inspiration from that fellow to eventually become a Bollywood star or whatever you want, So, acceptance creates positive emotional equation and non-acceptance creates a negative emotional equation. And therefore, in life, we have to always remember that anything you face with fear, it cripples you. And when the same thing you face with courage, it actually uplifts you. You can never go ahead in life unless you take the first step. Garuda, he decided he is going to do it. He was given a lot of warnings that getting the nectar from the heavens is not just difficult, it is impossible. But Garuda said, I'm going to do it. The first thing he did, as soon as he decided he's going to do it, is he went and took blessings from his mother, Vanita. And his mother told him, go and get blessings from your father, Kashyapa. So Garuda went to Kashyap Muni and took blessings from his father. And he asked his father, what should I do to equip myself to take up this Herculean task? Kashyap Muni told him, going to the heavens is not going to be easy. It's going to be a long journey. And he said, best is you get nourished very nicely. You nourish yourself nicely, equip yourself nicely, and then go on this journey. And then he told him that there was a huge elephant and a huge tortoise. And these two this tortoise and this elephant, they're not just regular sized, massive size of elephant and massive size of tortoise. They have been fighting with each other for centuries together. So Kashyap Muni told them that these two, this tortoise and this elephant, they were demons in their previous life. And in their previous life, they had a disagreement over some money that their parents had left. So they were continuing to fight from that point, Can you imagine, property matter continuing for 2 lifetimes, So in the previous life they were fighting as brothers, and in the next life fight continued as an elephant and tortoise. So Kashyap Muni told them that go to these two animals and kill these two animals and eat them up. We'll deal with that part later. But the essence is that, when Garuda, he decided to go on this journey, the first thing he decided was to take blessings from his mother and father. Most of the times in life, if you want to make life an adventure, if you want to do something big in life, the first thing that we need after having courage is blessings. That means we need blessings of people who can actually make sure that the venture that we are taking is a success. If you study the entire Mahabharata, what is Mahabharata in essence? Mahabharata is about two families, the Kauravas and the Pandavas. The family of the Kauravas, the family business of the Kauravas was to accumulate curses. And the family business of the Pandavas was to accumulate blessings. In essence, this is Mahabharata, If you study just before the Mahabharata war, after Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Arjun, just before the war was going to begin, the conches were blown, everything was ready. At that point of time, Yudhishthir Maharaj, he took out his helmet and kept it on the ground. He took out his armor. He put down his weapons. He took out his jewelry. Now, there was a lot of confusion among the Pandavas and there was a lot of happiness among the Kauravas. So the Pandavas were confused, what is he trying to do now? They knew that, Yudhishthira Maharaj was like Mahatma Gandhi, all the time he would be surrendering, all the time he would give up fast, So they were thinking, is he at this point of time giving up fight? Krishna told the Pandavas, just wait. He is playing the master stroke. The Kauravas, on the other hand, they had no idea what is he doing, removing all his, armors and weapons and all that. And Yudhishthir, he got down, straight walked to where the Kauravas were. Duryodhana was completely confused. In one sense, he was happy also, but he was confused also. Yudhishthir walked up straight to Bhishma, and when he reached Bhishma, he fell at the feet of Bhishma, and he asked him for blessings. Bhishma, when he looked at Yudhishthir, Jai Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki Jai. So when Bhishma looked at Yudhishthir, Bhishma told him that if you had not come here, I would have cursed you. Now that you have come here, I bless you that you win this war. Duryodhana was standing over there, he was completely bewildered. What is he doing? And then Yudhishthir went to Dronacharya. Dronacharya also said the same thing. I bless you that you win the war. He went to Kripacharya. He also said the same thing. He went to Shalya. He also said the same thing. After everyone blessed him, Yudhishthir asked each and every one of them the secret of their death. Can you imagine? He asked Bhishma, how will you die? And Bhishma told him, He asked Dronacharya, how you will die? And Dronacharya told him. Duryodhana was completely bewildered. They not only gave him blessings, but they also revealed the secret of their death to Yudhishthira. Essentially, in life, when we fall, once we fall, we need what is known as a fallback option. Everyone in life falls at some point in time. When we fall, the question is not will we fall. The question is when we fall, what is our fallback option? In the Mahabharata we find Arjuna and the Pandavas, their fallback option was Krishna. And the Kauravas, headed by Duryodhana, their fallback option was Shakuni. And therefore, because when you fall, whom do you go to for inspiration? We go to a friend who will inspire us in which way? There are some people who, when they have problems in their life, when they go through difficulties in their life, they fall, they go to a friend. And that friend tells them, don't worry, aajao mere saath. Takes them to a bar and makes that fellow drink, And they said, sab gham bhul jayenge hum log, peene ke baad. And there's another friend who tells that person to meditate, to chant some mantras. So how can a friend help you? The friend can help you to the extent he himself is trained. And therefore, either you can deal with bad by becoming worse, or you can deal with bad by becoming even more good. Whether you are going to rise from a fall, or whether you're going to fall further from a fall, is determined by who is your fallback option. And therefore, it is very important that each and every one of us have somebody in our life who is a very high standard of fallback option. And unless we have such a high standard of fallback option, it is very difficult for us to deal with failures that come in life. In the Mahabharata, at a certain point during the war, Duryodhana was very frustrated with Bhishma because Bhishma was just not fighting properly. In the beginning of the war, Bhishma had taken a vow that he will not kill any of the 5 Pandavas, but every day he will destroy 10,000 soldiers of the Pandavas. Now Duryodhana was frustrated. What is the point in fighting a war where the chief commander has taken he will not kill the major enemies? So Duryodhana started irritating Bhishma at a certain point. And he irritated him so much that Bhishma, out of anger, he took a vow. He removed 5 arrows from his quiver and he told Duryodhana, tomorrow morning I'll kill all the 5 Pandavas with these 5 arrows. So Duryodhana was very happy with these 5 arrows. He said, give me the 5 arrows, I'll keep them safely in the night. Because he knew these 5 arrows are going to practically win him the war. He took the 5 arrows, put it below his pillow and went to sleep. In the meanwhile, on the side of the Pandavas, Arjun was sleeping. Krishna was not able to sleep at all. Krishna was walking around pacing like anything. And Krishna asked Arjun, do you know what problem you all are in? Arjun said, my dear Lord, as long as you are taking anxiety, why should I worry? I am going to sleep. So Arjun was fast asleep and Krishna was thinking how to handle these 5 arrows. So finally, Krishna, he woke up Arjun and he told Arjun, I want you to go to Duryodhana's camp right now. Arjun was surprised. In the middle of the night, why should I go to Duryodhana's camp? He said, go to Duryodhana's camp and remind Duryodhan that he had a long back, he had given him a promise that he would fulfill any desire of his. During the exile, Arjun had saved Duryodhana's life once when the Gandharvas had captured Duryodhan. And at that time Duryodhan said, someday whenever you need anything, you just ask me, I'll give you whatever you ask for. So Arjun went in the middle of the night and woke up Duryodhan. And Duryodhan said, what do you want? Do you want the kingdom? If you ask me for the kingdom, I'll give it to you right now. Arjun said, I don't want the kingdom, I want those 5 arrows. Duryodhana was completely bewildered. How did Arjun come to know about these 5 arrows? And that's when Duryodhana realized that as long as Krishna is on the side of the Pandavas, it is very difficult for them to fail. Because they had a fallback option which is very powerful. In life, what is more important than anything else is not whether you will face failures in your venture, in your adventure of life, but as you face obstacles that come, do you have somebody who will give you blessings to handle it? And do you have somebody who will act as a fallback option when you face the failure in life? Garuda, because he was empowered by his father and blessed by his mother, he went ahead and he saw these tortoise and this elephant fighting like anything. He picked both of them with his 2 claws and he took them to a tree and he put them on the tree, on a branch of the tree, and he himself sat on the branch and he was just going to begin eating these 2 animals. Suddenly, that entire branch on which he was sitting broke. Now that tree was not an ordinary tree. It was actually a very mystical tree, and under the branch in which Garuda was sitting, there were thousands of small tiny sages whose name was Vyalkekas. These sages, they were very small in size, but they were very powerful sages. They were hanging upside down under their branch and performing tapasya for thousands of years. Now the branch broke and the sages were going to get crushed under the branch. And can you imagine, Garuda was sitting on that branch, there was this huge tortoise on one side, there was this huge elephant on one side, and the branch was breaking. When the branch broke, Garuda realized his mistake. He realized that the sages' lives were in danger. Garuda, at the perfect time, he swooped down, picked up the branch, balanced the elephant and the tortoise on 2 sides, and made sure that none of the sages fell off the branch. He took the branch and put it in a very safe location, hung it in a safe location, so that the sages continue the tapasya. The sages, they were so impressed with Garuda's speed and Garuda's alertness and Garuda's sensitivity that the sages blessed Garuda that he would achieve his goal. And more than that, the sages warned him that when you go to the heavens to get the nectar, there will be 3 obstacles that will come on your path. The nectar is guarded by 3 gates or 3 layers of defenses the demigods have put. No human being, no living entity till this point of time has even crossed the first stage of defense. What to speak of all the 3 stages? So the sages, they had warned Garuda and given him some hint of what is going to come ahead. When you venture out, the most important quality when you take on an adventure is develop trust in people who have the ability to assist you. Nobody in life can take up an adventure alone. Especially if you want to do something really powerful and great. Only a fool will think, I will go on my own and do something big and come back. Cooperation is one of the most important qualities in somebody who wants to become adventurous in life. We find all over the scriptures great personalities always cooperating with one another to achieve anything big. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find the Prichetas. They sat in the bottom of the ocean to perform tapasya. And when Vishnu appeared in front of them, the Lord was impressed not by the tapasya, but by the tapasya of their cooperation. In Kali Yuga, the problem is that when people are together, they fight. And when people are alone, they're hypocritical. So most people, they prefer to be either alone in their own rooms, in their own houses, in their own life, with their own mobile phones, alone, so that nobody observes them, they can be in their own world of hypocrisy. Or if they're together, they are fighting only. So you don't find people together peaceful and people alone very non-hypocritical. And therefore, it is very important that as people of substance, we need to learn to cooperate with one another to achieve a higher purpose. In the Mahabharata again, we find that there is a story that really brings out how many times in life your own ability is not enough. You need wisdom of others and you need cooperation of others to be able to achieve success. Krishna, so there was Ashwatthama one time during the war, he released a weapon which is known as Narayanastra. So this Narayanastra was a very powerful weapon, and the power of this weapon was such that anybody who tried to fight with this weapon, they get destroyed. So all the Pandavas, they were initially trying to fight the Narayanastra. And as the Pandavas were trying to fight the Narayanastra, the Astra was becoming even more powerful. Finally, Krishna realized that these people don't know how to counteract this Astra. He got up and he told all of them, drop your weapons and fall flat on the ground. Now, everyone who heard it immediately did it. Even Arjun, Yudhishthir, everyone dropped their weapons and fell flat on the ground. They were paying obeisance to the Narayanastra. Only one person was not ready to fight, to stop the fight, and that was Bhima. Bhima continued fighting, He said, I don't care for any Astra, I will fight till the end. And the entire Narayanastra concentrated its focus only on him. And literally Bhima was on the verge of being finished. And Krishna jumped on him, literally wrestled him, pushed him on the ground, and made him, lay flat. As soon as Bhima was flat on the ground, paying obeisances, the Astra, which was such a powerful Astra, it just disappeared. It didn't harm anybody. And then Arjuna asked Krishna, what kind of technique is this? I have seen many techniques of fighting with weapons, This is the first time I saw a technique where you don't do anything, but you lie flat, And that's what Krishna, he told Arjuna and the Pandavas, that to counter this Astra, there's only one technique. And that is, don't fight it, but pay respects to it. There are many problems in life that shouldn't be fought against. There are many problems in life that should be surrendered to. We need guidance of somebody who can tell us which problems to fight and which problems to surrender to. And therefore, here we find that in life, to be able to overcome many impediments, what you need is humility. What you need is humility to work together with people who have the wisdom, to give you direction, to give you insights into life. Literally, at every point in life, if you don't have the humility to surrender to somebody who can guide you, you will face a lot of difficulties in life. And the natural way of life, the natural cycle of life is such that at some point, every person will become redundant. Every person becomes redundant at some point. in the Ramayana we find when Jambavan was a personality who was such a powerful person that at one point in time in his life when he was in the younger days, he had circumambulated the entire universe 3 times, rather 21 times. The entire universe is circumambulated. He was such a powerful person, you know. But the same Jambavan when he became old, when he was in part of the Ramayana, he couldn't jump across an 800-mile ocean. He inspired Hanuman and empowered Hanuman to do it. So that means at some point in your life, you have to realize you can't do everything on your own. You need either strength of somebody or wisdom of somebody to go ahead in life. Garuda, he was very powerful. But just because he was powerful, he was not arrogant. He realized, if I don't treat these sages properly, if I don't help these sages, if I don't deal with these sages sensitively, then the venture that I am going into, the adventure that I am trying to undertake, it's not going to become successful. And therefore, the third quality that Garuda exhibited is a quality of winning the trust of these sages and learning to cooperate with people who have wisdom to guide him. Then Garuda, he now was blessed. He had the strength now. And not just the strength, but he also had guidance from these sages what is to come ahead. Now Garuda decided to go to the heavens. And by this time, all the demigods in the heavens, they were already ready. That somebody is going to come to try to take away the nectar. So they naturally strengthened the whole army, all the defenses in guarding the nectar. So when Garuda reached the heavenly planets, as soon as he reached the first wall, he realized this is not going to be an easy task, getting this nectar. There were thousands of soldiers that were standing as the first wall of defense, and Garuda was alone. Now he was thinking, how am I going to fight with thousands of soldiers single-handedly? And that's when Garuda, he decided to use his intelligence in fighting against these soldiers. He said, if I fight individually with each one, it's going to take me a lifetime to fight. He decided, let me do something else. He started flapping his wings. When Garuda started flapping his wings started creating a certain whirlpool type of wind. And the wind became so turbulent, literally all the thousands of soldiers that were standing in line all flew away. Even before Vayu, the wind god, he could react and he could stop this wind. The whole defense, the thousands of soldiers that were there were all gone, completely vacant. And Garuda now jumped and reached the second defense, which was waiting for him. This is the fourth thing that we learn if you want to make life an adventure. Face problems, don't run away from them. Most people in life, they are very enthusiastic about making life an adventure. They are very enthusiastic about dealing with adventures in life. But the moment they come across a problem, they say, "Humse nahi hoga, chalo wapas jate hain." I know so many people, if you have ever gone on trekking, you'll realize this. If you go on trekking, there'll come a stage where 90% people say, "Iske aage nahi ja sakte." And the people just return back, And those who persist, they are the ones who really reach the top. Same thing in life. Whenever you decide, I'm going to do this in my life, to a certain extent, in the beginning, you feel that things are nice and comfortable. But the moment you come across your first problem, immediately we say, "Mujhse nahi hoga. I can't do it. It's not meant for me. It's not my cup of milk," whatever. Some excuse or the other. Because this is an ISKCON temple, we don't say tea, So there is a bird called a buzzard. This bird has a very interesting way of living its life. For it to fly, it has to run to a certain extent. It has to run 10, 12 steps. After it runs 10, 12 steps, then it can fly to any extent. But if you put that bird in a box and it doesn't get 10, 12 steps to run, the bird will never fly in its life. Can you imagine? It's not the bird doesn't have the ability to fly, but has a conditioning how it can fly. If you have seen bats are mammals, small mammals that fly like mad, and they are so expert at flying that they can't see, even though they are blind, but they are so expert in flying that they never really meet with an accident ever. You can't even see them flying, they fly so fast. But they have a problem. If you put a bat on the ground, a flat surface, completely flat floor like this, its entire life the bat will be on the ground only. It will never be able to fly. You know why? Because for the bat to fly, it needs a cliff. It needs like a place where it can push itself off. If it gets that cliff, the bat can fly for its whole life. But if it doesn't get a cliff, if it has only a flat surface, the bat will wriggle on the ground for its whole life. A bumblebee can fly to a great extent. But if you put a bumblebee in a flask or in a container that has its top open but sides closed, the bumblebee can never fly out of the box. Because the bumblebee only knows to fly sidewards. It doesn't know to fly upwards. All of us are exactly like this bumblebee, this bat, and this buzzard. All of us have limitations of how to deal with problems. The buzzard, if it doesn't get 10 steps to run, it can't fly. If the bat doesn't get a cliff to jump itself, push itself off, it can't fly. If the bumblebee doesn't get a side to move, it can never fly. Similarly, all of us will face some problem or the other in life as we're taking the adventure of life, where this problem needs an out-of-box thinking. Whenever you face such problems in life, the first thing we have to remember is face it. Don't run away from it. The moment you come across a problem which seems to be difficult to deal with, don't run away from it. Learn to face it. I often tell the story, which is not exactly from the Mahabharata, but it is a folk tale connected to the Mahabharata. It's one of the Lokapramans. In the story, one time Krishna and Balaram, they go to the forest. They are actually on their way to another city, and on the way they come across a forest. And in this forest, so they're supposed to spend a whole night in the forest, so they are waiting in the forest. So they decide that they will take turns in sleeping. So one person will sleep and the other will guard. Then after some time the other will sleep and the other will guard. So first Krishna decides to sleep, and Balaram is guarding Krishna. So Balaram is walking around and Krishna is busy sleeping. Suddenly, as Balaram is guarding, a big demon comes in front of Balaram. And he starts scaring Balaram. He starts shouting intensely. So when Balaram looks at the demon, he becomes a little fearful. The demon shouts very loudly, and Balaram becomes a little fearful. And as soon as Balaram becomes a little fearful, Balaram becomes smaller and the demon becomes bigger. Now Balaram is confused, size has changed. Again the demon shouts very intensely. Again Balaram gets scared, and Balaram becomes even more smaller and the demon becomes even more bigger. Now Balaram is really scared. The demon shouts a third time, and this time he shouts really intensely. And when the demon shouts, Balaram becomes even more smaller and the demon becomes even more bigger. And this time Balaram is so scared, he shouts out the name of Krishna, Krishna! And he falls on the ground and he faints. In the meanwhile, Krishna, he hears Balaram calling his name. He thinks that, it's his turn to wake up and guard. So he gets up and he starts guarding. Balaram is sleeping, He doesn't understand that Balaram has fainted basically. And Krishna doesn't see the demon also. So he is guarding Balaram, and suddenly this demon comes out. And he intensely shouts at Krishna. So when this demon shouts at Krishna, Krishna looks to the demon, asks him, "What do you want?" So this demon gets confused when Krishna asks him this question, And as soon as Krishna asks him, "What do you want?" this demon becomes smaller, Krishna becomes bigger. So now the demon is confused. He decides, "Let me try again." He shouts one more time very loudly. And Krishna, when he hears the shout of the demon, he asks this demon, "What do you want?" And the demon becomes even more smaller and Krishna becomes even more bigger, And a third time the demon tries, "Let me try last time." Intensely he shouts out. And Krishna asks him, "What do you want?" The demon becomes really tiny, and Krishna becomes big. Krishna takes the demon, ties him in his dhoti and he goes to sleep. The next day morning, Krishna and Balaram, they're going back to their, to Dwarka. And Balaram, he starts narrating. He tells Krishna, "Krishna, do you know what happened in the night? One big demon came and he was scaring me like anything." Krishna removed the demon from his dhoti and showed him. "Is it this fellow?" Balaram says, "This fellow was so big yesterday. How did he become so small?" And through this story, Vyasadeva gives a very interesting moral or an interesting lesson that we can learn from the story. He tells, problems that we face in life, that we come across in life, are like this demon. The more you get scared to face them, the more you are fearful of them, the more they appear bigger. But the moment you start facing the problems, the moment you start dealing with the problems, the moment you start looking at the problem and ask the problem, "What do you want?" The moment you start facing the problem, the same problem that is otherwise huge and big appears much smaller, easy to handle. And therefore, in life, if we want to make life adventurous, we have to learn to start facing any problem that comes straight at the face and ask the problem, "What do you want?" Garuda, after destroying the first wall of defense against this nectar, he starts venturing further. And as he goes closer to the second wall, he realizes this is even more complicated than the first one. This is not a regular wall, it's a wall of fire. And as Garuda is approaching closer to this wall, his feather starts burning literally. And he doesn't know how to go ahead now. And it's not that he's even close by. Even from a distance, the fire is so intense that his feather starts burning. Garuda realizes that he cannot deal with this wall of fire with his own strength. He decides he has to go back and equip himself properly and come back. He jumps from there, comes back to the earth, goes to the ocean, fills up his mouth with water from the ocean. And Garuda can drink an entire ocean literally. He has so much capacity to handle water. He drinks huge amounts of water and jumps back and pours it on the fire, and he shuts down the entire fire that was burning. And now the whole firewall, the second wall of defense, is gone. Now as Garuda, he is ready to jump into the third wall of defense, he realizes that this is not an easy wall to handle also. First was soldiers, thousands of them. Second was a firewall. And the third one was a very dangerous type of wall within which the nectar was there. The pot of nectar was there. And this comprised of two metal discs. They were razor sharp metal discs. And these metal discs were rotating around two of them were rotating around the celestial pot. And they were rotating so fast that if anybody stepped into the metal disc, into that, between the two metal discs, one of the discs would sever either the arms or legs, something would get cut. 100% amputation was going to happen, So Garuda was thinking, how do I handle this? Because now, how much ever he tried to squeeze, how much ever he tried to, change the angle of his jump, he knew that he would land under one of the metal discs and he would get severely amputated. Garuda, he decided he has to do something very different to handle this particular disc, this particular defense. He decided to make himself small. So he actually reduced the size, his size. He made himself so small that he waited for the exact time when one disc could pass, and before the second disc came, he jumped in. Somehow or the other, he saved himself from the two discs, and now he's in between, and the pot of nectar is ahead of him. The only thing he has to do is put his hand out and bring the pot, catch hold of the pot of nectar. And suddenly he realizes there is a fourth problem that is waiting for him inside. The next lesson that we learn when we come across, when we are taking up our adventure to life is that without going through pain, there is no gain. Which essentially means that in life, don't expect life to become an adventure which is memorable, rememberable, and enjoyable without going through pain. People want everything smooth in their lives. Unfortunately, things don't come smooth at all. You have to go through pain. And interestingly, what Garuda teaches us is that if you are anyway going through pain, might as well enjoy it. Unfortunately, people suffer pain. Pain means discipline. There are two ways to experience discipline in life. One way to experience discipline is voluntarily take up discipline, and the second way to experience discipline in life is forced discipline. If you don't take up discipline voluntarily in your life, discipline will be forced into your life. So, people who are intelligent, who want life to be adventurous, they learn to embrace pain with joy. And unless you learn to embrace pain with joy, there will be no transformation that happens. In fact, we have to learn to laugh at everything that happens to our life. In fact, if we don't learn to laugh over anything that happens in life, we will become quite dull and depressed. Today's society is devoid of laughter actually. I remember in our younger days, when we would sit in front of the table as a family, the only thing we would be doing is laughing. So much laughter. Just being together, we would be just laughing like anything. There would be times when we would not be able to eat also. So much laughter. My uncle, he was quite a funny person. And when he would crack a joke, he would himself roll on the ground and laugh, Like, quite weird type of person. Enjoyed life like anything, But today's generation, next generation, you need laughter clubs, People come together and there is a leader who says, laugh now. Ha, ha, ha. And everybody is together laughing, One generation after that is like a handkerchief generation. That means nobody laughs. You take a handkerchief on your mouth and giggle, One generation after that, you don't laugh also. You send a message, lol. The next generation won't even do that. Only smiley, So essentially, people are forgetting to laugh, forgetting to enjoy life. And therefore, naturally, so many psychologists are needed today, who teach you, relax, don't take so much tension in life, And people are so depressed today that if anything negative happens, they get irritated, You're calling up somebody and the other guy doesn't pick up the phone. You start banging your phone, Why is he not picking up the phone? So much dissatisfaction, so much negativity, so much of, sadness in life, only because we don't know how to laugh when we go through negativity. Humor should be used to deal with your problems, actually. When you go through a problem in life, if you learn to laugh it off, then life will be much easier. Problems will be much easier to deal with. And therefore, remember that when you go through complications in life, when you go through pain in life, learn to enjoy that pain. Learn to enjoy going through the discipline, going through that painful experience. Because if you don't learn to enjoy that, then somehow or the other, you will feel suffocated. You will feel frustrated. You will not be able to go through that experience of pain throughout. Transformation does not come without intensity. If you want transformation to happen in your life, we have to be learned to be present in that moment with full intensity. Life is all about a few triggers. Every person goes through some moment in their life, some experience in their life, which are known as ever since moments. Whenever an ever since moment comes in your life, you are never the same person after that. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, when he was thrown off that train in Pretoria in South Africa, ever since that moment, he never remained the same. He eventually became Mahatma Gandhi. Siddhartha, when he saw suffering around him, ever since that moment he never remained the same. He eventually became Gautam Buddha. Every person goes through one incident in life which becomes an ever since moment. And this ever since moment can come any time in one's life. It can come as you're hearing this class. It can come as you are walking around on the streets. It can come any point of time. The only thing that you need to have when you go through these ever since moments is that you have to be present in that moment with full intensity. There are so many people, for 20 years they think that I want to do this in my life. I want to take up writing, I want to take up painting, I want to take up speaking, something they think in their life they want to do. 15 years, 20 years, they only think. Why? Why they never able to achieve it? Because they have never been intensely present in that moment. Only if you are intensely present in an ever since moment, that moment can become a transformative experience. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is intensity with which you live life. Don't live life very loosely. Don't live life very lightly. Live life with intensity. When you live life with intensity, then transformation happens. There is a difference between transformation and change. Transformation is not change. Change is reversible, but transformation is irreversible. Change means New Year night, 31st December, I take a vow, I'll stop smoking. 2 days you follow it, third day you start again. 2nd January, you will go on this Marine Drive, fully crowded, hundreds of people jogging. 2nd February, you will go, it will be empty. That's called change. Reversible process. Transformation means a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. Irreversible. Transformation means a stone becoming a statue. Irreversible. It cannot become a stone again. Similarly, transformation means that some change has happened within you which cannot be rolled back. There is no control Z when you go through a transformation in your life. And when can transformation happen? Transformation can happen when you are present with full intensity in a particular ever since moment. After that, you will never be the same person again. That's when transformation can actually happen in life. So Garuda, at this point of time, he decided that no matter what, he's going to get that nectar, and he was ready to go through any amount of pain to the extent of, risking his own life, risking amputating of his own limbs to be able to get the nectar. Now he was inside that chamber, and at that point of time, all around, he started hearing this sound: "You can't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it." So essentially, from the beginning of Garuda's venture till this point of time, everybody has been telling him, "You can't do it." Most of the times in life, this is exactly what we go through in our lives. It is explained, by the time somebody has reached the age of 14, You have heard at least 1,48,000 times that you can't do it. Naturally, if you hear so many times you can't do it, whenever you decide to do anything, that only keeps playing in your mind. You can't do it. Life is exactly like that. The sixth thing that we learn from Garuda is to ignore all these voices. Ignore all these voices that keep telling you you can't do it. And therefore, if you look at nature, you realize there are many things in nature that technically is wrong, scientifically wrong. Like for example, a bumblebee, the wings of the bumblebee, the thickness of the wings, the weight of the wings, and the aerodynamic shape of the wings, if it is scientifically studied, the scientists say that the bumblebee, the wings of the bumblebee cannot support the weight of the bumblebee. And therefore the bumblebee is not supposed to fly. But unfortunately, bumblebee has not studied science. It's flying around happily, So it is said, many times education ruins us. Many times knowledge ruins us. Many times too much information ruins us. Anybody who is less informed about his inability actually ends up doing better. And therefore, we have to start learning to speak the language of life. What is the language of life? You can do it. That's the language of life. And the language of negativity is you can't do it. And that's what the world is telling us. That's what everybody, including our parents, have been telling us. You climb on stairs, they say you can't do it, you'll fall down. You put one electric plug in a socket, you'll say no, you'll get shock. Constantly hearing these negative things only, and naturally you start doubting yourself. The world is a result of a few human beings who have maximized their potential. It does not matter what I have in life, but what really matters is what I do with what I have in life. So most people in life, they end up making a lack list. Lack list means it is a list of all the things that I don't have, therefore I can't do anything. If you look at every human being in life and look at the lack list, nobody is supposed to be able to do anything. You are supposed to just sit at home quietly. कुछ नहीं करने का. क्यों? इतने सारे problems हैं मेरे में. Unfortunately, most people who have achieved something substantial in life, they have achieved because they have not focused on the lack list. They are focused on what they have. So therefore, like for example, we find Beethoven. He was one of the best music composers in the world. This fellow was deaf. He never heard his own music. Einstein, he was hunchbacked, but he redefined science literally. We find John Milton, who wrote this poetry called as Paradise Lost. This man, he wrote such poetry about nature, blind man, never saw nature. We find people who are not the smartest people, they have become the most influential people in society. For example, Rajinikanth, if you look at him, anybody will say, I can become a hero, if you look at him. But what he did is something that nobody else can do, right? Essentially, what it means is that each one of us have a bandwidth of perceptions of what I can do. That bandwidth of perception determines what you achieve in life. And most of us are just bound by the small bandwidth of perceptions that we really don't want to go ahead in life at all. And therefore, what we need to keep telling ourselves is this thing. It does not matter what I have, but what matters is what I do with what I have. Only then we can do something substantial in life and not hear those negative sounds that keep telling us, you can't do it, you can't do it. Garuda, he realized that the nectar isn't right in front of me. The scene is that there are two blades that are revolving around him, behind him. Right in front of him there is a pot of nectar. But there's a problem. Most people till now, what he has been hearing about three lines of defense. But what he didn't hear was that there is a fourth one inside, which he was not aware of. There were two big snakes, intensely poisonous snakes, that were right in front of the pot. Now for him to take that pot, he had to cross these two snakes and only then he could touch the pot also. Now Garuda was thinking, how am I going to touch the pot? Because now he can't go back. The two, discs are rotating. He can't go ahead because the two snakes are there. So Garuda, he started thinking again what he should do. So essentially, now what Garuda started doing was, he did something completely unexpected of him. Garuda, he again began to flap his wings with intense force. The force with which Garuda flapped his wings was very calculated. Now if he used too much force, even the pot of nectar will fly away. So he calculated how much force is needed to only push the snakes away. I don't know how he calculated, you don't ask me, He did some calculation, and he used that much force in his wings that only threw the snakes away. So because the snakes were pushed back, they were pushed back to such an extent, they actually fell between the discs. And the discs chopped the snakes, basically. And now, the nectar was right in front of Garuda, and there was no snakes also. There was no poisonous snakes. Garuda took the pot of nectar under his wings, and now he began to expand his size. And he started expanding his size with such a speed that practically the metal discs that were around him, they were shattered to pieces. Because the size of Garuda increased suddenly. So it didn't cut him, it didn't touch him, but rather it just broke off and shattered to pieces. Now Garuda, he took the nectar and he started flying backwards. And as he started flying backwards, Indra, the king of the demigods, he realized that Garuda is taking away the nectar. So he came in front of Garuda and he took his Vajra, the thunderbolt, and threw the Vajra on Garuda. Indra was totally bewildered that though the Vajra hit Garuda on his body, nothing happened. Literally, the only thing that happened was one feather from Garuda's body fell down. The Indra realized that this is not an ordinary bird, This is not an ordinary personality. So Indra went and told Garuda that please take the nectar with you, but my one request is that don't allow the Nagas to drink this nectar. Otherwise there will be a disaster. So Garuda realized that what Indra is saying is right. He told Indra, don't worry, I will release my mother from slavery and I'll make sure you get the nectar back. So Indra left, and then Garuda got the pot of nectar to the Nagas. The Nagas were in ecstasy seeing the pot of nectar, and they started celebrating like anything. And instantly they declared Vanita is a free bird, she can just do what she wants. And they were continuing to dance, sing in great joy. And just when they were just about to consume the nectar, Garuda, he started laughing at them. So the Nagas were confused why Garuda is laughing at them. Garuda said, I didn't know you were such fools. So the Nagas, they didn't realize, they didn't understand what he was saying. So he said, don't you know, before drinking celestial nectar, you should at least have a bath and come. So the Naga said, yeah, you're right. He said, you take care of the nectar, we'll come back. So they all went to have a bath in the river. In the meanwhile, so as they came back from the river having a bath, they saw that Indra was taking away the nectar. Vanita was free, Garuda was free, and the nectar was going. The Naga started running behind the nectar. And somehow, as Indra picked up the nectar and flew in the air, few drops of nectar fell on the ground. And the Nagas ran to lick that few drops of nectar. And as they were licking that few drops of nectar which has fallen, it fell on kusha grass. And that kusha grass was sharp, so it cut their tongue. Therefore, you'll find the snakes have, forked tongue, slit tongue basically. And finally, the Nagas were disappointed that they lost the nectar. They lost their slave also. Vanita also is gone. And Garuda became extremely happy that he found his mother, he released his mother from slavery. And Indra was very happy that Garuda's intelligence, the nectar also was saved. And finally, after seeing all this, one personality was observing this whole thing, and that was Lord Vishnu. And he was very impressed with Garuda's intelligence, sensitivity, ability to handle so many calamities. At the same time, his devotion to the demigods. Vishnu was very impressed with his strength. And Vishnu, he came to Garuda and he told him that I am very impressed with your abilities. Would you like to become my vehicle? And Garuda very gladly accepted the position of being Lord Vishnu's vehicle. And from then on, Garuda became the celestial carrier of Lord Vishnu. At this point of time, we learn a very important lesson, which is one of the last lessons that we will learn today. The lesson that we learn is that two small lessons actually. One is that the process of learning is more important than the goal itself. You have to learn to see value in what you have. Most of the people in life, they want things that are valuable, but they forget to see value in the things that they already have in life. And the second important lesson that we learn in life is that for life to be an adventure, the most important quality to have is selflessness. That means when we act for ourselves selfishly, to a great extent, we become bound by our selfishness. When we act for the sake of others, you get a sense of achievement that you don't get when you do things for yourself. And therefore, one of the most important qualities to have to make life an adventure is actually selflessness. Garuda, he did something wonderful, but whom did he do it for? He didn't do it for himself. He was doing it for his mother, and later on he was doing it for the demigods, and later on he was doing it for Lord Vishnu. That means all the adventure that Garuda had in his life, none of it was for his own benefit. And because he did so much for the welfare of others, therefore his life became one of the most adventurous lives in the world. And therefore, most people act like a glowworm. What is a glowworm? It's called a jugnu. One time, Lord Brahma, he came in front of a glowworm, in front of this jugnu, and he asked him, ask for anything. And this, glowworm, he said, the only benediction I want is that make the sun set. Because in front of the sun, the glowworm is nothing. So glowworm said, I want to be more seen, so make the sun set. So Brahmaji made the sun set, but the moon came up. The glowworm said, make the moon also set. No moon, no sun. So Brahmaji hid the moon also. All the stars are visible. This fellow said, put a clouds in front of the stars. Brahmaji put clouds in front of the stars, and finally only this fellow was shining. Do we want that in our life? For us to shine, we want to put off everybody else. Switch off everybody else. So the most natural, how do you want the world to remember you? Most people want the world to remember us by what we have. But if you look at the history of the world, nobody remembers the other person by what that person has. But people remember famous people. People remember others by what they gave to the world. And therefore, if you really want to be famous, if you really want to be well known in the world, if you really want to set a trend in the world, don't focus on what you have. Focus on what you give others. And then there will be a point of time when everybody wants to see who you are and what kind of an adventurous life you have lived. One time there was a man who went to a village, and in this village he found something very interesting which he couldn't believe, Just in the entrance of the village there was a cemetery. And in the cemetery he saw something that shocked him, bewildered him completely. He saw in the cemetery there were names of people, and below that a number was written. 10, 11, 20. So he realized that the number is the age, number of years that person lived. He found, when he saw the entire cemetery, nobody lived beyond 20 years. He was quite shocked. What a village this is. Everybody is dying so young. But he was living in the village with a lot of anxiety. He somehow began to love the villagers because they were very nice people, very kind people. After many months of living in that village, he spoke to one of the people. He said, how is it such good people in this village, but they die so young? That man started laughing. He said, come on, are you a fool? Look at me, I am 60 years of age. How can you say that we die young? This man said, look at the cemetery. Everybody's age is written. Nobody is beyond 20. They said, we have a policy in this village. The policy in this village is that every person maintains a notebook. And in that notebook, we write down how many hours in a day we have spent in satsang. How many hours in a day we have spent serving others selflessly. At the end of our life, all these hours are put together and a calculation is done how many years this fellow lived in satsang, doing something good for others. That is the age that is put on the cemetery. So that means 20 years. If somebody has done 20 years something good, that is his age. If somebody has done 11 years something good, that's his age. So the real age of a person is calculated by how much you have done something for the sake of others. Today, if we calculate all our age, we'll be pleasantly surprised. We are not even born, literally. Paida bhi nahi hua abhi tak. I don't think we'll get even 9 months, to time in the mother's womb. So essentially, when we study the life of Garuda, we realize that if we want to make our life adventurous, if we want to make our entire life into an adventure, these are some principles by which we can actually live life so that life becomes an adventure. First, learn to deal with our fears before you begin the journey. That means fears stop you from taking your first step. The second thing we learn is that most people, they want to start an adventure just based on their own strengths. What we can learn from Garuda is you can't do anything on our own, we need blessings. Just like he took the blessings of Kashyapa and his mother. And the third thing is that when we are on a venture, remember that we need to have trust and take guidance from wise people who can actually show us direction. Remember how Garuda took guidance from the sages and from his own father. And then the fourth thing that we learn is that when you come across a problem in life, learn to face it. Don't run away from the problem. And as you learn to face the problems appear smaller and you can deal with them. And the fifth thing that we can learn is that we should be ready to go through pain during our venture. And as we go ahead in life, as we go through problems in life, we'll go through pain. But we should learn to enjoy the pain and not suffer the pain. And the next thing that we can learn is that there will be many people who will keep telling you, you can't do it. We have to learn to ignore all those people who keep telling you that you can't do it and learn to face all those people who keep telling you, encouraging you that you can do it. And finally, we have to learn the most important quality of being selfless. And as you remain selfless, the more adventurous your life will become, and you'll actually have a sense of achievement when you try to contribute towards somebody's life. I'll end with a small story that will really inspire you all about how we can live our life. You can remember this story and see if we can live life based on this principle. There was a small pond in which there was a colony of insects. Every now and then, one of the insects, so these insects were living inside the pond. Every now and then, one insect would climb up the lily stalk and he would go out of the pond and he would never come back. So every insect who was inside the pond, they always wondered, where do these insects go they don't come back only. What happens to them? And the funny thing is that none of the insects who go out, they ever come back to report to the remaining insects what happened to them. So one insect, he decided that whoever goes out next should come back and inform the rest of the people what happened to me. So they all took a policy decision, From today onwards, whoever goes out will come back and inform the rest. Next day, this fellow only went out. He climbed the lily stalk, and as soon as he reached the surface of the pond, wings came, and this fellow became a dragonfly. Started flying all over the pond. He started experiencing a sense of happiness that he had never ever experienced in his life. Flying, in the pond. Finally, after many hours of flying, he realized that there is a duty that I have to perform. I have to go back and inform my friends what has happened to me. Now he started entering into the pond to try to go back to his friends. Every time he tried to enter the pond, he just could not enter only. He realized he's transformed. He's not a insect anymore. He's a dragonfly. Even if I want to go back, I can't go back. There is no way I can go back to my friends. And that's when this dragonfly, he had 4 profound realizations in his life. The first realization that he had was that each one of us will come to a stage where we will become like this dragonfly. We were in a colony of insects. Suddenly we came out one day and we become a dragonfly. And we want to go back and inform our friends. And this is the exact 4 realizations that you will have in your life. The first realization he had was that now that I have become a dragonfly, even if I want to go back to where I have come from, I can't go back. Transformation essentially means transcending the old formation of who I was in the past to who I will be in the future. My own past looks like somebody else's past. That is what transformation essentially means. That whenever somebody goes through a transformation in his or her life, that person is no more the same person what he was before. And there is no point in being frustrated. You are already a dragonfly. Why are you trying to live like a water bug? Each and every one of us in this room, we have gone through some transformation. We were water bugs at some point of time. After coming in touch with the devotees, after coming and eating prasad for a substantial amount of time, we have slowly started developing some wings, Now, we shouldn't go back to the colony of insects and try to become a water bug. Now that you're a dragonfly, you can't go back to where you were. The second realization that this dragonfly had was that even if I somehow or the other go back to where I was, those water bugs will never recognize me in my new form. Even if I end up going back to my colony, my old friends will not recognize me anymore. This is the price you have to pay for going up in life. Every person who has come in touch with the Hare Krishna movement, you will lose your old friends. 100% guarantee. If you don't lose your old friends, then kuch to gadbad hai. Then means you have not gone through a transformation. When you go through a transformation, even if you want to go back, even if you go back to that same place where you came from, the old guys won't recognize you. They will say, kuch to ho gaya isko. Pank aa gaya. Any one of us who keeps growing, keep evolving, you will face this predicament in life. Being misunderstood by others. Any person who walks ahead of his time is sure to be misunderstood. The people whom you were with will not recognize you now because you've gone through a transformation. The third realization that this dragonfly had was that if I had not chosen to give up the comfort of being an insect, I would have never become a dragonfly in my life. That means as long as you are in your comfort zone, your zone of satisfaction, content, unless you have the courage to break open from the comfort zone, you will continue to remain a water bug. Whereas you actually have a potential to become a dragonfly. That means You have to stop seeing yourself as a water bug if you want to see yourself as a dragonfly. It's not important for other people in the world to believe you. Even if nobody in the world believes you that you can become a dragonfly, but if you believe in yourself, it's enough. And therefore, the most important person you need to really convince is yourself. If everybody believes you, but you don't believe yourself, even if the whole world believes you, it's not enough for your transformation to happen. You have to start believing yourself. And what about the others? Do I leave them? Do I forsake them? What do I do with them? The fourth realization that the dragonfly had was that if I keep flying as a dragonfly up above the waters, one day the water bugs who are inside will get inspired by my life. And one day will come, they will also want to become a dragonfly. That means the responsibility of everybody who has become somebody in life is to be a role model for those who have not yet become. And therefore, if you can live your life like a dragonfly, flying up, those people, insects who are like a water bug inside the water, one day they will look at your life and want to seek inspiration. And therefore, the best thing you can do for your friends is become a good dragonfly and fly. Maybe someday they will look at you and they'll say, let me become like you. These are the four things that we can learn from the dragonfly. I'll end with a quote. Life is inherently risky. There is only one big risk you should avoid at all costs, and that is the risk of doing nothing. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So thank you, Shubh Vilas Prabhu, for a very enlightening lecture. It was really amazing and absorbing. And let us thank him by